Hey folks, thanks very much for tuning in. Welcome back to the channel. Hello if you're new. I thought I'd just do this video, hopefully it'll be a quick one, just to point out some stupidity that I've seen, or at least I certainly think it's stupidity, and totally unjust as well. I think this might be slightly controversial though, so make sure you let me know your thoughts in the comments. Maybe I am actually on the wrong side of this argument compared to most people. I'm sure we'll soon find out. So the story is that Jeremy Kyle is being blamed for the decision of one of his guests to commit suicide. This has nothing to do with whether I like Jeremy Kyle or not. I don't particularly know anything about him, apart from his public persona, and generally, based on that, I don't like him, but that's by the by. The fact is that another person's death is being placed onto Jeremy Kyle's shoulders, and that seems extremely unfair and unjust to me. To just accuse someone else of having such a hand in the death of another person in these circumstances. And it's not the family of the victim I'm talking about here. They are absolutely entitled to be angry in their grief and point the finger anywhere they want, including at Jeremy Kyle. That's not something I would take away from a grieving family who've been bereaved by suicide. But it's the judicial system that's blaming Jeremy Kyle. He's being blamed in an official capacity. He's been legally named as an interested party to the inquiry into the person's death. This is due to the fact that he's been found by the coroner to have contributed to or caused the death. So a little bit of background. The Jeremy Kyle Show, for those who've been living under a rock, was an extremely popular show in the UK. For my American and other non-UK viewers, if you don't have the Jeremy Kyle Show where you are, although I think you might have, it was a bit like the Jerry Springer Show, car crash TV, featuring guests from the UK's most vulnerable groups, unfortunately. So it seemed. There was a lot of addicts, there was a lot of people with mental health crises, long-term unemployed people, etc. And they'd be wheeled out onto the stage to air their dirty laundry for the purposes of entertaining the masses. It must satisfy some kind of primal human need because it brought in 1 million simultaneous viewers per show, and it was referenced a lot as part of popular culture, usually as a way to denigrate someone by saying how Jeremy Kyle a certain situation is, for example. Nobody goes on to the Jeremy Kyle Show without knowing what it is, that's my point. It was a feature of the British media landscape, and Jeremy Kyle is the host, and he's very well known for his no-nonsense and potentially quite nasty demeanour. So people who go on the show, they know that they're probably not going to be in for an easy ride, and 1 million live viewers per episode must have brought in an absolute fortune for ITV, but they shut down the show after this media storm that followed the suicide. Now the guest who died, I'm just going to call him the victim. The focus of the video is not on him. It's not on his family. His family are very upset with Jeremy Kyle, and they're entitled to feel however they want to feel, and however they do feel. It is a very sad situation. But the victim supposedly took a lie detector test on the Jeremy Kyle Show, and I believe this was done to prove that he'd not been unfaithful to somebody. Apparently, that person had asked him to go on the Jeremy Kyle Show and take a lie detector test, and he agreed. And he unfortunately failed the lie detector test, which suggested that he was lying. We've seen it 1,000 times on television before. The hosts always act as if their test simply could not be wrong. So I don't think we should focus on the results of the test or use them to judge the victim in any way. But either way, in television lie detector test terms, this gentleman was exposed as a cheater, and Jeremy Kyle, in his role as the ringmaster, the host of the show, he berated the victim for this, which is exactly what you'd expect on the Jeremy Kyle Show. There was no other option for Jeremy Kyle, that is the show. He's not exactly going to sympathise with someone who's just failed a lie detector test when the person that's been cheated on is sitting right there, probably crying or shouting. He's not going to console the person who failed the lie detector test. To expect that is just insane. The suicide happened in 2019, but it's back in the news because Jeremy Kyle, as I say, is getting effectively blamed for the man's death. I can't really get my head around that at all. If we have a look at the newspaper reports, I'll bring up this website. I still call it a newspaper because I was born in the 80s. But this is metro.co.uk. It's one of the worst, really. It's written as if it looks like a local newspaper, which you usually expect to be quite devoid of opinion in their articles. But this metro.co.uk seems to be staffed by people who wish they worked for the tabloids because of the amount of adjectives they use in their reporting, such as horrific, slimy, vile, that kind of thing. We'll have a little read of their article. So they say, Jeremy Kyle's horrific comments to the victim days before he died by suicide have been revealed. The presenter had branded the late guest a serial liar and said he would not trust him with a chocolate button, a coroner has stated. The claim was made at a pre-inquest interview into the death of the victim, who died of a morphine overdose and heart problem at his home after taking a lie detector test on the Jeremy Kyle show. It's been alleged that Mr. Kyle also made the comment, "Has anyone got a shovel?" during the programme featuring the 63-year-old, who is suspected to have taken his own life 7 days after the recording in May 2019. So a very sad situation for the family, 100%, and a tragic situation for the person who felt the need to commit suicide. But Jeremy's comments were not horrific by any stretch of the imagination. Horrific means so bad as to be shocking or causing horror. He said, he called the guy a serial liar and said he wouldn't trust him with a chocolate button, and also said, "Has anyone got a shovel?" I don't find any of these horrific. I think the shovel comment has been put in there to bring some association to potentially death, digging a grave, for example. But to say, "Has anyone got a shovel?" as far as I'm aware, that's just a humorous remark that you make when you want to suggest that someone's digging a hole for themselves. It was a humorous remark. I don't believe it was intended to drive the guy to kill himself, and I don't believe that it was horrific at all. Now, calling him a serial liar, that's by the by. We don't know what the background was, we don't know what the story was, but perhaps this guy had been accused of cheating all the time or had been caught cheating before. Who knows? It's completely irrelevant now. But because of this story, this is all getting brought out again, even though the guy's dead, and it's disrespectful to his memory, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. I'm not part of his family. It's obviously not for me to say too much about this. But certainly I can say that none of those comments by Jeremy Kyle are horrific if you look at them objectively. Maybe the newspaper was being hyperbolic, but I don't think we should be using hyperbole in a newspaper article when something so serious is being discussed. It's obviously the newspaper's attempts to claim the moral high ground whilst simultaneously stirring hatred against Jeremy Kyle. But it's not so much that the newspapers are going after Jeremy Kyle, and it's not so much that the family absolutely despises Jeremy Kyle. It's the fact that the coroner is blaming Jeremy Kyle, and that means Jeremy Kyle is being blamed in law. So just to remind you who a coroner actually is, we can have a look on the Manchester City Council website, which is as good as any. Coroners are judicial office holders. They are completely independent and are appointed directly by the Crown. They have qualifications and substantial experience as a lawyer, a medical doctor, or sometimes both. So, qualifications and substantial experience as a lawyer, a medical doctor, or both. So there's no doubt about it. These are competent, highly capable professionals. These are very smart, successful people, which is what makes it all the more remarkable that this coroner appears to think that Jeremy Kyle deserves to be blamed for the death. I don't think the coroner understands how TV works. It's as if he thinks Jeremy Kyle ran his entire show, sitting at his computer scouring Facebook and reaching out to people to book his guests and checking the medical history of each person to assess whether they're suitable to be on the show. Presumably the coroner thinks Jeremy Kyle did the wages as well, and maybe he thinks that the show was filmed in Jeremy Kyle's garage. The point is that a coroner, of all people, should understand that Jeremy Kyle is one cog in the machine, taking on the role of a showman, acting exactly as he's paid to act. Now, if anyone should be getting the blame, I think it should be the head of ITV. If you're going to exact this kind of revenge on a person, such as what's happening to Jeremy Kyle for the suicide of someone else, and I do consider it to be a form of revenge, which benefits nobody in the long run, then the buck should surely stop with the person who allowed the whole thing to exist in the first place. ITV fueled the rise of the show, advertised it heavily, and made millions from it. There's definitely a case to make for negligence on the part of ITV for not supporting this man after the show properly. Yet they shut down the show and they blame the host, because the host treated the guest in the exact same way that any guest on the Jeremy Kyle show would expect to be treated. I think ITV closed down the show to avoid scrutiny about their own lack of aftercare for this guest. And now obviously we've got the newspaper headlines accusing Jeremy Kyle of horrific comments, because it's easy to get away with stomping on Jeremy Kyle. People lap it up. Now I understand that the victim was said to be depressed and on medication for depression, but without sounding harsh, does that mean that we shouldn't allow depressed people on television if they want to go on television? Are we meant to just patronise people just because they're on antidepressants? I know it sounds harsh, but if someone fails a lie detector test, if we see that that person is on antidepressants, are we meant to just disregard the results of that lie detector test and tell them it's okay for them to cheat on their partner? And I'm not saying that he did cheat, I'm just saying that he took a lie detector test on the Jeremy Kyle show and failed it. So surely he should just be treated the same as anyone else in that situation. We shouldn't be patronising him because he's on antidepressants, surely? Is that just overly harsh on my part? I just find the whole thing to be, at best, completely misguided. And I know when I die, I don't want someone else being blamed for my death just because they spoke to me a week previously and they're generally seen as a hate figure. Because what if Jeremy Kyle's depressed? Nobody seems to have asked that question. What if Jeremy Kyle's on antidepressants at the moment and he's being blamed publicly for the suicide of another man who he had absolutely no ill will towards whatsoever? What if that crushes Jeremy Kyle's spirit and causes him to commit suicide? Who do we then blame? The coroner? When do you stop blaming people? Do we blame the newspaper, the people that wrote that article? To me, it seems to be one of the flaws in this so-called compassionate new society that we seem to have found ourselves in, where someone is thrown to the wolves in order to prove how caring we all are. And you expect it from the media, but you don't expect it from a coroner's office. We could have shown respect to this guy in death and discussed the situation without making his death all about Jeremy Kyle. His death is basically now been turned into an extension of the Jeremy Kyle show. And now the coroners got involved and said that Jeremy Kyle may have caused this guy's death. Actually caused it. If I was Jeremy Kyle, I would reject this forcefully, just out of principle. But he is in a little bit of a bind because if he speaks out, he's going to be slated probably even more than if he just takes it on the chin. So, there we go. Anyway, folks, I'll leave that one there. As I say, it's just a quick one today. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to know what your opinion is on this one, whether it's just me with a terrible take. If you do like this kind of thing, please like and subscribe and share, all that good stuff. And I'll be back again at some point with something else, no doubt. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, folks.